Bhagavate Sri Arvindaya. Om Anandamayi, Om Chaitanyamayi, Om Satyamayi, Om Parame. I will give you a little instruction as we have our friends new to the reading. I will be reading and I'll be giving pause in between so that you can read or you can pause to meditate while I'm giving pause. And also today we will be studying the book of yoga, Canto 7, the cosmic spirit and cosmic consciousness. And after that we'll be skipping a book, and that is a book of death, book 8, and we switch over to part 3, that is book 9 to 12. To be more clear, we'll be reading book 9, the book of eternal night, after we finish our current reading of the cosmic spirit and cosmic consciousness. Hope you follow that. Okay, shall we start now? Page 555. No? I think we have to start 554. But now the unmoving wide spiritual space in which a mind survived tranquil and bare admitted a traveler from the cosmic rits. A thought came through draped as an outer voice. It called not for the witness of the mind. It spoke not to the hushed receiving heart. It came direct to the pure perception's seat, and only center now of consciousness. If center could be where all seemed only space, no more shut in by body's walls and gates, her being a circle without circumference. already now surpassed all cosmic, already now surpassed all cosmic bounds, and more spread into infinity. This being was its own unbounded world, a world without form or feature of circumstance. If had no ground, no wall, no roof of thought, yet saw itself and looked on all around in a silence motionless and illimitable. There was no person there, no centered mind, no seat of feeling on which beat events or objects wrought and shaped reactions, stress. There was no motion in this inner world. All was a still and even infinity. In her, the unseen, the unknown waited his hour. But now she sat by sleeping Satyavan, awake within, and enormous night surrounded her with the unknowables vast. A voice began to speak from her own art that was not hers, yet mastered thought and sense. As it spoke, all changed within her and without. All was, all lived. She felt all being one. The world of unreality ceased to be. There was no more a universe built by mind, convicted as a structure of a sign. A spirit, a being, saw created things and cast itself into unnumbered forms, and was what it saw and made, all now became an evidence of one stupendous truth. a truth in which negation had no place, a being and a living consciousness, a stark and absolute reality. There, the unreal could not find a place. The sense of unreality was slain. There all was conscious, made of the infinite. All had a substance of eternity. Yet this was the same indesirable, indecipherable. It seemed to cast from it universe like a dream, vanishing forever into an original void. But this was no more some vague ubiquitous point, or a cipher of vastness in unreal naught. It was the same, but now no more seemed far to the living clasp of her recovered soul. It was herself, it was the self of all. It was the reality of existing things. It was the consciousness of all that lived and felt and saw. It was timelessness and time. It was the bliss of formlessness and form. It was all love and the one beloved's arms. It was sight and thought in one all-seeing mind. It was joy of being on the peaks of God. She passed beyond time into eternity. Slipped out of space and became the infinite. Her being rose into unreachable heights and found no end of its journey in the self. It plunged into the unfathomable deeps and found no end to the silent mystery that held all world within one lonely breast, yet harbored all creation's multitudes. She was all vastness and one measureless point. She was a height beyond heights, a depth beyond depths. She lived in the everlasting and was all. Page 556. That harbors death and bears the wheeling hours. All contraries were true in one huge spirit, surpassing measure, change, and circumstance. An individual, one with cosmic self, in the heart of the transcendence miracle and the secret of world personality, was the creator and the Lord of all. Mind was a single innumerable look upon himself and all that he became. Life was his drama and the vast a stage. The universe was his body, God its soul. All was one single immense reality, all its innumerable phenomenon. A spirit saw the world as living God. It saw the One and knew that all was He. She knew Him as the absolute self-space, one with herself and ground of all things here, in which the world wanders seeking for the truth, guarded behind its face of ignorance. She followed him through the march of endless time. All nature's happenings were events in her. The heartbeats of the cosmos were her own. All beings thought and felt and moved in her. She inhabited the vastness of the world. Its distances were nature's boundaries, its closeness our own life's intimacies. Her mind became familiar with its mind. Its body was a body's larger frame, in which she lived and knew herself in it one, multitudinous in its multitudes. She was a single being, yet all things, the world was a spirit's wide circumference. The thoughts of others were her intimates, their feelings close to her universal heart, their bodies are many bodies kin to her. She was no more herself, but all the world. Page 557. Out of the infinitudes all came to her, into the infinitudes sentient she spread. Infinity was her own natural home. Nowhere she dwelt, her spirit was everywhere. The distant constellations wheeled round her. Earth saw her born. All worlds were her colonies. The greater worlds of life and mind were hers. All nature reproduced her in its lines. Its movements were large copies of her own. She was the single self of all these selves. She was in them, and they were all in her. This first was an immense identity, in which her own identity was lost. What seemed herself was an image of the whole. She was a subconscient life of tree and flower, the outbreak of the honeyed buds of spring. She burned in the passion and splendor of the rose. She was the red heart of the passion flower, the dream white of the lotus in its pool. Out of the subconscient life she climbed to mind. She was thought and the passion of the world's heart. She was the Godhead hid in the heart of man. She was the climbing of his soul to God. The cosmos flowered in her. She was its bed. She was time and the dreams of God in time. She was space and the wideness of his days. From this she rose where time and space were not. The superconscient was a native air. Infinity was a moment's natural space. Eternity looked out from her on time. End of Canto 7, end of Book 7. Book 9, the Book of Eternal Night. Canto 1, Towards the Black Void. Page 572. I think we have started half an hour before, so interrupting in between will disturb the connectivity. So please don't do this next time. Be sharp at 5 o'clock. Canto 1, Towards the Black Void. So was she left alone in the huge wood, surrounded by a dim, unthinking world. Her husband's corpse on her forsaken breast, in a vast silent spirit motionless, she measured not her loss with helpless thoughts, nor rent with tears the marble seals of pain. She rose not yet to face the dreadful God. Over the body she loved, her soul leaned out. In a great stillness without stir or voice, as if her mind had died with Satyavan. But still the human heart in her beat on, aware still of his being near to hers. Closely she clasped to her the mute lifeless form, as though to guard the oneness they had been and keep the spirit still within its frame. Then suddenly there came on her the change, which in tremendous moments of our lives can overtake sometimes the human soul and hold it up towards its luminous source. The veil is torn, the thinker is no more. Only the spirit sees and all is known. Only the spirit sees and all is known. Then a calm power seated above our brows is seen, unshaken by our thoughts and deeds. Its stillness bears the voices of the world. Immobile, it moves nature, looks on life. It shapes immutably its far-seen ends, untouched and tranquil amid error and tears, and measureless above our striving wills. Its gaze controls the turbulent whirl of things. To mate with the glory it sees, the spirit grows. The voice of life is turned to infinite sounds. The moments on great wings of lightning come, and godlike thoughts surprise the mind of earth. Into the soul's splendor and intensity, a crescent of miraculous birth is tossed, whose horn of mystery floats in a bright void. As into a heaven of strength and silence thought is ravished, all this living mortal clay is seized, and in a swift and fiery flood of touches, shaped by a harmonist unseen, a new sight comes, new voices in us form, a body of the music of the gods. Immortal yearnings without name leap down, large quiverings of Godhead seeking, run and weave upon a poisoned field of calm, a high and lonely ecstasy of will. This in a moment's depths was born in her. Now to the limitless gaze disclosed that sees things barred from human thinking's earthly lids. The spirit who had hidden in nature soared out of his luminous nest within the worlds. Like a vast fire it climbed the skies of night, Thus were the chords of self-oblivion torn, like one who looks up to far heights. She saw, ancient and strong, as on a windless summit above her, where she had worked in a lone mind, laboring apart in a sole tower of self, the source of all which she had seemed or wrought, a power projected into cosmic space, a slow embodiment of the ionic will, a starry fragment of the eternal truth, the passionate instrument of an unmoved power. A presence was there that filled the listening world, a center, a central, all assumed a boundless life, a sovereignty, a silence and a swiftness. One brooded over abysses, who was she? As in a choric robe of unheard sounds, a force descended trailing endless lights, linking time's seconds to infinity. Illimitably it girt the earth and her. It sank into her soul and she was changed. Then, like a thought fulfilled by some great word, that mightiness assumed a symbol form. Her being's spaces quivered with its touch. Her being's spaces quivered with its touch. It covered her as with immortal wings. On its lips, the curve of the unuttered truth, a halo of wisdom's lightnings for its crown. It entered the mystic lotus in her head, a thousand-petaled home of power and light, immortal leader of a mortality, doer of our verbs and fountain of our words, invulnerable by time, omnipotent. It stood above her, calm, immobile, mute. All in her mated with that mighty heart, as if the last remnant had been slain by death of the humanity that once was hers, assuming a spiritual wide control, making life see a mirror of heaven's sky. The young divinity in her earthly limbs filled with celestial strength her mortal part. Over was the haunted pain, the rending fear. Her grief had passed away, her mind was still. Her heart beat quietly with the sovereign force. There came a freedom from the heartstrings' clutch. There came a freedom from the heartstrings' clutch. Now all her acts sprang from a Godhead's calm. Calmly she laid upon the forest soil the dead who still reposed upon her breast, and bore to turn away from the dead form. Soul, now she rose to meet the dreadful God. That mightier spirit turned its mastering gaze on life and things, inheritor of a work left to it unfinished from a halting past. When yet the mind, a passionate learner, when yet the mind, a passionate learner, toiled and hill-shaped instruments were crudely moved, toiled and ill-shaped instruments were crudely moved. Transcended now was the poor human rule. A sovereign power was there, a godlike will. A moment, yet she lingered motionless and looked down on the dead man at her feet. Then, like a tree recovering from a wind, she raised a noble head, fronting her gaze. Something stood there, unearthly, somber, grand. A limitless denial of all being that wore the terror and wonder of a shape. In its appalling eyes the tenebrous form before tenebrous form bore the deep pity of destroying gods. A sorrowful irony curved the dreadful lips that speak the word of doom. Eternal night in the dire beauty of an immortal face pitying arose. receiving all that lives forever into its fathomless heart, refuge of creatures from their anguish and world pain. His shape was nothingness made real. His limbs were monuments of transience, and beneath, brows of unwearying calm, large godlike lids, silent beheld the writhing serpent, life. Silent beheld the writhing serpent, life. Unmoved their timeless, wide, unchanging gaze had seen the unprofitable cycles pass, survived the passing of unnumbered stars, and sheltered still the same immutable orbs. The two opposed each other with their eyes, women and universal God. Around her, piling their void, unbearable loneliness upon a mighty, uncompanioned soul. Many inhuman solitudes came close, vacant eternities, forbidding hope, laid upon their huge and lifeless look, and to a ears silencing earthly sounds. A sad and formidable voice arose, which seemed the whole adverse worlds. Unclasp, it cried, thy passionate influence and relax, O slave of nature, changing tool of changeless law, who vainly resist rebellion to my yoke. Thy elemental grasp, weep and forget. Entomb thy passion in its living grave. Leave now the once loved spirit's abundant row. Pass slowly back to thy vain life on earth. It ceased. She moved not, and it spoke again, lowering its mighty key to human chords. Yet a dread cry behind the uttered sounds, echoing all sadness and immortal scorn, moaned like a hunger of far wandering waves. Wilt thou forever keep thy passionate hold, thyself a creature doomed like him to pass, denying his soul death's calm and silent rest? Relax thy grasp, this body is earth's and thine. His spirit now belongs to a greater power. Women, thy husband suffers. Savitri drew back her heart's force that clasped his body still, where from her lap renounced on the smooth grass, softly it lay, as often before in sleep when from their couch she rose in the white dawn, called by her daily tasks. Now too, as if called, she sits mantled for a race, and waits the signal, motionlessly swift. She knew not to what course a spirit above on the crypt summit of a secret form, like one left sentinel on a mountain crest, a fiery-footed splendor poison-winged, washed flaming silent, with a voiceless soul, like a still sail upon a windless sea. White, passionless it rode, an anchored might, waiting what far-reached impulse should arise out of the eternal depths and cast its surge out of the eternal depths and cast its surge. Prayer for peace, peace, peace upon all the earth. May all escape from the ordinary consciousness and be delivered from the attachment for material things. May they awake to the knowledge of Thy divine presence, unite themselves with Thy supreme consciousness, and taste the plenitude of peace that springs from it. Lord, Thou art the sovereign master of our being. Thy law is our law, and with all our strength we aspire to identify our consciousness with Thy eternal consciousness, that we may accomplish Thy sublime work in each thing and at every moment. Lord, deliver us from all care for contingencies. Deliver us from the ordinary outlook on things. Grant that we may henceforth see only with Thy eyes and act only by Thy will. Transform us into living torches of Thy divine love. With reverence, with devotion, in a joyful consecration of my whole being, I give myself, O Lord, to the fulfillment of Thy law. Peace, peace upon all the earth. Prayer to Sri Aurobindo. To Thee who has been the material envelope of our Master, to Thee our infinite gratitude. Before Thee who has done so much for us, who has worked, struggled, suffered, hoped, endured so much before Thee, who has willed all, attempted all, prepared, achieved all for us. Before Thee we bow down and implore that we may never forget, even for a moment, all we owe to Thee. Radha's Prayer. O Thou, whom at first sight I knew for the Lord of my being and my God, receive my offering. Thine all my thoughts, all my emotions, all the sentiments of my heart, all my sensations, all the moments of my life, each cell of my body, each drop of my blood. I am absolutely and altogether thine, thine without reserve. What thou wilt of me, that I shall be, whether thou choosest for me life or death, happiness or sorrow, pleasure or suffering, all that comes to me from thee. All that comes to me from thee will be welcome. Each one of thy gifts will be always for me a gift divine, bringing with it the supreme felicity. ஸ்ரீ அரவிந்த அன்னைக்கு பிரார்த்தனை. ஸ்ரீ அரவிந்த அன்னையே, ஆரோவில் என்னும் இந்த புண்ணிய பூமியிலிருந்து நாங்கள் எழுப்பும் இந்த கூட்டு பிரார்த்தனையை செவிமடுத்து எங்களின் பிரார்த்தனையை, எங்களுடைய கோரிக்கைகளை உங்கள் அபரிமிதமான அன்பினாலும் கருணையாலும் ஒளியாலும் எங்களுக்கு ஆசி வழங்குமாறு பிரார்த்திக்கிறோம். ஒவ்வொருத்தருடைய வாழ்க்கையும் அவர்களை சுற்றி இருக்கக்கூடிய சூழலிலும் தங்களின் ஒளி பிரவாகம் முழுவதுமாக பரவி எங்களை உங்களுடைய கூட்டுக்குள் வைத்து அரவணைக்க பிரார்த்திக்கிறோம் அன்னையே. நன்றி அன்னையே. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Aurobindaya. Thanks for being with us. A kind request, when you're joining for the reading, please be on time at 5 to 6. Thank you.